morning. Thank you for joining us for the December 6th Village Board Legislative Session. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Trustee Codman,
Present.
Trustee Quezada,
Present.
Trustee Levin,
Present.
and Mayor Garrity.
Present.
We have 3 public hearings this evening. First one being in the matter of the proposed local law number 8, 2017, amending chapter 178 noise of the Village of Austin Code. Corporation Counsel?
Thank you, Mary Ann. Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. This proposed local law deals with the issue of the permanent emergency generators that we have discussed in the past with regard to the use of those generators. It also includes certain emergency provisions in here when those generators may be used in excess of the particular noise ordinances here. There are also some provisions with regard to operations of certain lawn equipment in terms of that you can't push your debris onto the street. But again, primarily relates to the emergency generators. I know we've discussed this both legislatively, and we've also discussed it at various work sessions.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who's come to address the board on this issue? Not seeing any. Are we closing this public hearing? May I have a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved. Second.
On the board, anyone like to comment? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll move on to public hearing in the matter of the proposed local law number 9, 2017, adding Chapter 6, Boards and Commissions to the Village of Austin Code and amending Chapter 8, Civilian Police Complaint Review Board, Chapter 17, Code of Ethics, Chapter 119, Environmental Advisory Council, Chapter 162, Housing, Property Maintenance, and Building Code Administration, and Chapter 270, Zoning of the Village of Austin Code. Corporation Counsel?
Thanks again, Mary Ann. Mayor and members of the board. This local law, as Mary Ann noted, adds a new chapter to our code for boards and commissions, and also amends other sections of the code relating to various boards and commissions that the village has. In general, what the proposed legislation does is place term limits with regard to these various boards and commissions. For those boards and commissions where there is a 5-year term, it would be 2 consecutive terms. For 3-year terms, it would be 3 3-year terms. And for 2-year terms, it will be 4 consecutive terms. Additionally, there are attendance requirements. Folks must attend a minimum of 75% of the meetings in any given calendar year. And for our 4 land use boards, which would be zoning, planning, environmental advisory, and historic preservation, there will now be training requirements. As for zoning and planning, those training requirements are already in the village law. We have added them with regard to both historic preservation as well as to environmental advisory, and those will require 4 hours of training each year. This, therefore, will hopefully allow for more folks to get on these boards and commissions throughout the village, just we'll change it in that sense, so we'll put the terms in and the attendance requirements as well as the training requirements.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here who's come to address the board on this public hearing? Not seeing anyone, may I have a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Does anyone want to comment on this? I've discussed it at length, but if anyone would like to comment further tonight. All right, well, I just want to thank you, Corporation Khan and Manager Debbie McDonald. This is the kind of provision that you have seen in some of the municipalities you have worked in, and I appreciate Corporation Counsel doing research to bring us a variety of versions that are implemented in other communities and helping us figure out the approach that's going to work best here in Ossining. Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Our third public hearing is the continued public hearing text amendment to the zoning code Chapter 270. Corporation Counsel.
Thank you again, Mary Ann, and good evening, Mayor and members of the Board of Trustees. This public hearing was initially conducted a few weeks ago and was held open at the request of the Board. I do know that there are some folks here who would like to address the Board with regard to that. So at this point, Mary Ann, if there's anyone who wants to address, please come up and identify yourself.
Kindly give your name and your residential address.
Certainly. Well, for the record, Daniel Laub with the firm of Cuddy and Fader, here representing petitioner Cardinal McCluskey Community Services. Our office address is 445 Hamilton Avenue, White Plains, New York. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the board. We appreciate you taking up this matter once again. In response to, I think, what I had sensed were your concerns, I had actually started taking a look at the T zoning district and looking at the parcels on it, because I think some of the concern is that, the proposed legislation amends the entire T zoning district. So I took, using the village's zoning map, which includes the parcel information, it appears that there's plus or minus about 1,000 parcels designated as T zoning district. Comparing that to the parcel that we're looking to purchase from Executive Properties at 155 North Highland, which is about 0.85 acres. There are approximately, from my estimation, looking at the map and comparing that comparative size, there are approximately 25 to 30 properties of that size. And we had spoken with the planning board about a minimum lot size. Now, that actually brought up an issue, which we now have. What the planning board recommended, and it was incorporated in the latest revision to the local law, was a minimum 1 acre lot size. We actually, we're petitioning for a property that has less than that. So that puts us in something of a quandary, because I think that was something that they had discussed, and I'm not sure if we'd never just double checked the lots to make sure what matched. But I think there's also another provision elsewhere in the code that makes a minimum of 1 acre lot size, and I think they adopted it from that as well. So that was sort of ported over. So that is an issue that for us it wouldn't work for what we've been striving for here, which is to be able to use the property at 155 North Highland for the Cardinal McCluskey Community Services with the text amendment. But circling back to my original point, I think there was concern that this was opening up a Pandora's box for the T zoning district, and I think because of the some sort of lot size provision, these kind of lots are not very common in T zone, but there are some, and it does provide planning and zoning flexibility for the future.
Mayor, if I might, I'm sorry, Mary Ann, I don't mean to reach across you. The issue with regard to the 1 acre minimum was discussed by the planning board, and it was a meeting that was attended by applicant's counsel. I can advise this board that at the last planning board meeting in November, I did present the proposed local law, the amendment to the planning board, which included the 1 acre recommendation that they had, and the planning board was unanimously in favor of the proposal based upon this. Council is, this information that the property is less than 1 acre was something that I was advised of last evening. And if in fact it is the view of the applicant that their property is in fact less than 1 acre, I think it would be prudent to ask the planning board to again look at their recommendations with regard to this, because the planning board was clear when they made recommendations as to buffer and as to parking. They also put in a 1 acre minimum with regard to residential schools that would be accessory to the use. And therefore, it would seem that it was clear there that it was 1 acre, and that's why it was presented in the legislation here. I think, given that it appears that the applicant is in a situation where the proposed text amendment does not afford them the relief, if they're looking for a change, or if they have an issue with regard to the recommendation, as it has now been presented back to this board from the planning board, I think the planning board should be permitted to opine on that specifically, because they were very clear that they wanted 1 acre. And it was not objected to, I should point out, at the time that it was presented to the planning board.
Yes?
Well, are there any other comments? I mean, we should probably, before we start to discuss further, I have a couple of questions, Counselor, but if others want to speak first, I would be open to.
Is there anyone else who wants to address the board?
On this public hearing? No? Okay. Seeing none, are there folks on the village board who have some questions? Deputy Mayor, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So just take me back here. So what happened was we had a proposed text amendment that was presented by the folks that are here today.
Yes.
And they requested that there be this 1 acre minimum,
No,
correct?
I want to be clear on that. Their proposal did not include the 1 acre.
So where did that come from?
That came from the planning board as a recommendation that they
Okay, so based on the planning board's recommendation, the text amendment proposal that,
included the planning board's recommendation, which was of a 1 acre minimum, buffer area, and parking comparable to what you would see in a senior living facility. So those recommendations were placed into the text amendment. There was no zoning, there was no, in the proposal, there was no minimum acreage. The planning board, viewing the particular use that would be for this structure, felt that a 1 acre minimum was appropriate. And as I noted again, that was something that was discussed at length by the planning board as part of their recommendations, and in fact is in their recommendations back to this board.
and it seems clear to me that the planning board wasn't aware that the current applicant had a piece of property that was less than 1 acre.
Absolutely not.
Is that
None of
correct?
us knew that.
Including the applicant?
Oh,
I have a few questions.
I'll be
sorry, go
I'll
ahead,
be
go
finished
ahead.
in just a second. Okay, so what you're recommending though is that given the new information that we've received, that you would suggest that we have the planning board reconsider their last.
At least to opine on that recommendation. I think that, the planning board may come back and simply say that they still think 1 acre minimum for this type of use is appropriate within the T-zone. As this board knows, when it comes to a text amendment, ultimately this board decides, and all it is a recommendation. But in view of the fact that the planning board did make that recommendation based upon the presentation given to them at that time, I think that would be the prudent course, it would be my suggestion.
And would that be something that we would legislate or agree to? How would that communication
I
go to the
think that
planning
can
board?
simply be a communication from Corporation Counsel to the planning board chair to advise that is the case. There is a planning board meeting on the 19th of this month. I will speak with the planning director and planning board chair to see if we can get that on the agenda for that meeting. But I think it can just be a communication from my office there without a formal referral.
Thank you.
Trustee Quesada.
It's interesting because for something like this, and not knowing the size, and when they came in with a request to modify something in our zoning book, definitely they knew the size, because I'm assuming that part of their request when someone goes to the planning board to do any application or anything, any matter, that's a requirement as part of the application. So you actually put the size of your lot, correct? Provide a survey, so you guys knew the size of the lot. To me, this whole process, like I expressed myself in different occasions, not in favor of. There's a couple things that I have issues with in regards to this application, but it seems like it's not gonna be my purview to, not this year. Corporation Counsel, one of the things that I have asked last time that we have a public meeting is it should be more like a description of what was the request in regards to the changing of the T-zone. I have not seen that.
You're correct, sir.
So to me, that part was missing of this, because there's a lot of people that still, not this week, but previous weeks, have contacted me in regards to what was the change and how was that gonna affect them. So I wasn't able to provide it with something solid, so to speak. So
Understood.
my request, again, will be for the board and you to work on something that that can be sent out to the public, and it will be translated, so everybody sort of is on the same page at that time. Going back a little bit of history, I guess, if I was to have a property, a single family zone, there's requirement. If my size, if the lot does not meet the requirement,
Right.
there's a couple things that you could do. So you go to zoning board and you ask for variance for the lot size.
Right.
So to me, for this applicant to come in front of the board and request for us to change something in our zoning book for this particular application to apply just for him, to me is a little bit unfair. What happens to someone that has a one single family zone, the lot is undersized, so now they have to go through the whole process of going through the zoning board, but because you're requesting this right now, you will not be able to do that. So there's a lot of things that I just don't see as being a little bit fair for everybody else. So again, I'm gonna stand back. I do not agree to the whole process itself and how this application is coming. And I'm gonna leave it as that.
Trustees Levin or Basemore, do you have comments or questions? Trustee Levin? This board has never really had a unanimous perspective on how best to move forward with this request. And I'm actually not sure if this wrinkle about the lot size from the applicant came up. I'm still not sure how this would have really unfolded and what would have happened, but given where we are right now, I think we should be deferential to the Corporation Council's recommendation that we send this back to the planning board and ask for them to opine on whether or not they would be supportive of making a recommendation for a text amendment of a size that is smaller than 1 acre. That would be unusual and not consistent with our code. I think a very likely path forward that I anticipate much of the board would be supportive of, which is not as expedient as what this may have been, would be that we've got $150,000 in our 2018 budget to review our comprehensive plan. And what kinds of structures and organizations and programs are encouraged or permitted, or whatever kind of use in any given zone, those are the kind of things we'll be looking at. That's a lot longer of a process than a text amendment, but given where we are right now, I think that's a very likely path that this proposal is going to take. Nodding, it's not a formal decision, so I guess, given that, Corporation Council, do you recommend that we close the hearing, that we keep it open, that we make a request of the planning board? What do you think is the,
May I ask something?
yeah, please, go ahead.
So what would happen, let me ask you this, so what will happen if we were close this hearing, pass this law, pass this, right? So they will have to come, they will get sort of like what they wanted originally, sure, what they have requested, except for the size of the lot. So now they will be able to do something in this, with the exception that they will have to go in front of the zoning board to ask for a variance. Am I correct?
They might have to go to the zoning board. We have another matter which is similar in a different type of zone where there are some issues with regard to whether there is it's appropriate for an area variance.
But no,
Without
what
going
I'm
into
saying,
specifics.
but now, let's say this board passes this with all the caveats that
They
it
would
was
need to go to
informed.
the zoning board of appeals.
Correct.
To have something
To
less
get
than their lot
something
size.
less.
You are
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
And what is the zoning board of appeals, based on how they have handled somewhat similar cases in the past? Are they likely to kick it back to us again?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so
So my
should we
rec-
close this?
My
What are we
rec-
doing?
My recommendation would be to keep the hearing open.
Yeah.
And ask the planning board to opine on the issue with regard to the 1 acre minimum. And then we can report back once that has occurred.
That's fine.
I'm with
Agree that
that.
that's fine?
Anybody against that idea?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we need,
We need to
do you
vote?
just need a sense of the board to keep it open? Do we actually have to vote to keep it open, or we're
We
just
should vote to
no
keep it,
action?
I would say.
Okay.
We need a date certain as well.
Okay.
Done in January.
I would,
It could be December 20th.
we can do
No.
it December
No, because
20th.
they're meeting on that.
They're meeting on the 19th.
If we get it on the calendar for the 19th, I'll have an answer, you know, on the
Okay.
May.
Come on. I want to be
All
part of
right.
it.
One
All
more.
right,
one
so,
more
that-
chance,
so
man.
on,
That's fine.
We'll keep it open.
keeping it open to be reconsidered again on the 20th.
Yep.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion to say so?
We
Yes,
need to
do I have
vote?
a motion for an adjournment until December the 20th.
So moved.
Second.
On the
Same.
board?
It's not voting.
I know.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Just say nay.
Still abstain.
You're voting.
He doesn't like the process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, that completes the public hearings for this evening. Now, we're gonna do mayors and trustees announcements, or?
We're going to have something a little special tonight. It is our last meeting of the year in this space. And one of our colleagues who has been on the board for 6 years now.
Almost
so-
6.
Almost 6 years by the end of the month, is going to be winding down his service on the village board. So Trustee Quesada, we would like to spend a few moments with your colleagues in village government, some folks you have served with, and your family, saying thank you and honoring you. So if the board would please stand and join me in front of the dais.
No.
Okay, oh, all right, I misunderstood. No, because we were told not to put our names down. Okay.
Grab an agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, excuse me. Somebody just said, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Oh, no, we'll do pictures. We got a lot of talking to do first. So we tried to keep this a secret. How do we do? Until you walked in tonight.
Actually, I knew about something was going on because I saw a table, and we usually don't have a table unless there's something else is going on. So
But
I
until-
didn't know anything about it.
But till an hour ago.
I didn't know anything.
Well done, Fern, and well done, well done. Excellent. Excellent. All right, well, you don't want her to get too good at that, Manny, but. All right, so. So I have the honor of getting to begin. I have the honor of being able to begin by sharing this proclamation with my colleague, Trustee Manuel R. Quesada. Whereas Manuel Quesada graduated from Ossining High School just a few years after moving to this country. Less than a decade later, in 2004, he earned his citizenship. He married Fern Quesada in 2011, and they have 3 children who are here with us tonight, Elizabeth, Anna, and Lily. Hi. Whereas long before running for elected office, Manuel pursued his career in architecture. He studied civil technology at Westchester Community College and went on to earn his bachelor's degree in architecture from the New York Institute of Technology. And whereas combining his experience with building construction, renovation, and preservation with his desire to serve his community, Manuel became a member of the village's Historic Preservation Commission in 2009. And whereas the residents of Ossining will continue to benefit for generations to come, thanks to Manuel Quesada's influence on village policy for the past 6 years. Since taking office as village trustee in 2012, Manuel has provided valuable insight, particularly about planning and building, to all who have served with him. Now, therefore, I, Victoria Garrity, Mayor of the Village of Ossining, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, residents, and merchants of the village, do hereby express deep appreciation to Manuel R. Quesada for his service, and we proclaim Saturday, December 9th, as Manuel R. Quesada Day in the Village of Ossining, and urge all our residents and merchants to join us in honoring him. And I am certainly not the only one who would like to say a few words, and so I'm going to pass the microphone over to my colleague on the board, Rika Levin.
Hi, thanks all for coming. Scooch in. So, Manny, been great. I think that people who serve the public, and especially the way you've been doing it, with integrity, kindness, thoughtfulness, institutional knowledge for somebody who's new, like me, was new, no more. You are tremendously helpful, but also you and Fern are wonderful members of the community. I think when you serve the public, people often forget that we all live here, that we raise our families here, some of us retire here, and move on to yet more generations, and so we're all part of a larger community. Fern, thank you for letting him come to all the meetings and the hundreds of hours that are spent. Oftentimes spouses are sort of forgotten. So I don't need a microphone. Can you hear me on this? Okay. So
Hold the
Manny,
microphone.
one of the things I think, even in the digital age, is that everybody deserves a really great pen. And we all, the trustees on the board, want you to have this and think of us as you sign more and more papers, as you come to our meetings, as you join boards, as you sit on that side, and well, so, oh, here, pen. I think it's bigger than the Chiefs pen that we normally use. I'm just saying. Big competition.
Can I see?
So enjoy, yes.
That's a pen you're not allowed to touch, just like the other. I'm gonna give somebody else a turn now. Can I give somebody?
Just one more. Oh.
Thank you. So Louie, I think you know this next person we're going to invite up here. We have some friends who I think would like to also share some words with Trustee Quesada. Jennifer, did you have someone you wanted to represent this evening?
So this is from Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff, and she wished she could be here herself tonight, but she was called to Albany, so I came in her place. I'd like to read this citation. Whereas we are gathered here this evening with the Ossining Village Board to commemorate Manuel Quesada's 3 terms of public service to the citizens of Ossining as a village trustee, whereas Manuel Quesada is a true son of Ossining, who came here from Ecuador in 1992, graduated from Ossining High School, married here in 2011 after getting his degree in architecture, and participated on the Historic Preservation Commission, whereas Manuel Quesada has also been active with the IMA Negotiating Committee, Neighbors Link, the Ossining Volunteer Ambulance Corps, and the Ossining Police Department. Now, therefore, let it be resolved as a duly elected member of the State Assembly of New York, I recognize that Manuel Quesada is an exceptional person, very true, worthy of the esteem of both his community and the great state of New York. And Manny, just on a personal note, I will never, ever, ever forget your inauguration speech the first time you won. It was very touching, and I will never forget the words you said that day. So congratulations for all your hard work and recognition. That's for you. Thank you.
And I see there are some folks here in the room with us that may want to express a few words to Manny. Don't have to. This would be the time. Really? You're gonna let this opportunity pass by? Yes. You can use this one. So this is Bob Durayo. He came into office with Manny, and they served together.
So I came on the board with Manny 6 years ago and served 2 terms with him here. Manny has been a true inspiration to me, and the way he and Fern and his children have embraced Gail and I almost as part of their family has been one of the best things about my living in Ossining. As a member of the board, his efforts to help us be more fiscally responsible, to help make the village more efficient. He did all these things that were uncomfortable, and he did it with calmness, with grace, and with an intelligence and a depth of caring that I have never seen anywhere else in my working life. It has been an honor and a privilege for me to have served with him, and he will be missed here on the board. But given that it's Manny, I'm fair certain that he's not going away, and he'll find ways to keep busy here in the village and continue to be as useful and committed member of this community as he's always been. Thanks, Manny, for everything you've done.
Thank you. If there's anybody else who would like to speak, you are welcome to, or you can always make remarks. If you're somebody who's part of the meeting, you can make remarks later on if that's more comfortable for you. So maybe Manny. Oh, no, there's somebody who's waving his hand. Deputy Mayor Codman, there you go.
I thought you were bopping Lily on the head.
No,
I'm like,
no,
what is he doing, my kid?
No, I can't do that. I'm sorry. You know, Manny and I have probably maybe disagreed as much as we agreed on things on the board on a variety of different topics. But in those disagreements, there's been a great deal of respect and a great deal of higher purpose, especially for the greater good. And even though Manny and I disagreed, I always knew that he was looking for the best thing to do for the community and for all that lived here. And that is a true public servant. And I'm so glad to have worked with you, and you've been a part of this board. Thank you very much.
Well, I just want to say I think you and I agree a lot. And I want to thank you for always picking up the phone when I call, even in the middle of the workday. And if for some, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Yes. So Fern's going to like us all so much more beginning January 1st when we stop bothering you during dinner. And I'm really glad that Assemblywoman Galeff mentioned your work with the IMA Negotiating Committee, because I've very much appreciated you taking on that role, which is another one of the things that you do to take time off of your regular job that pays your bills and come represent the interests of the village as we negotiate with legal counsel and our colleagues in the town to find the best way that we can really share services. That's a very important part of our job, and I very much appreciated you taking that role on as the person with, who does that for nearly all of the IMAs we've been discussing in the last couple of years. That's been a very important role, and I've appreciated particularly working with you on that. You don't always agree. We've had an interesting service together in the last 5 years, but I would say in the last 3 years it's really been a good partnership, and I'm going to miss having you on the board very much. Would you like to say something, sir, now that we've all gushed about you?
Thank you. About 7 years ago, actually 8 years, almost 9 years ago, I wanted to do something for a community that did a lot for me. And I was part of the HPC. I became a member of that. I wanted to do something more for something that this is my home. Ossining has been my home for more than 20 years now. I became involved in politics because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to have our village, Ossining as a whole, to be a better community. I'm not sure if I did a lot, to tell the truth. It's a group effort. John, you're right, we do not agree on a lot of things, but I think overall, and Victoria, one of the things that I have said to you, yes, one of the things that I said a couple years back, I will support any good idea that's to the benefit of the village of Ossining. And I think I have done that. You know, we always, I think 99% of the time we agree as a board, and it is 1% that we may not agree, but I think that's what makes it a healthy board. That's what it makes it something good. I'm gonna miss this. Being part of the village board of the village of Ossining taught me a lot. One of the biggest things that it taught me is that I miss my family a lot. So I'm not gonna miss that part that much. I'm still gonna come to the meetings. That's something that I'm gonna take to heart, because it's always good to be involved on things that we care for, and we want to make a difference on that in that perspective. So I may not be sitting with the rest of the village board, but I am going to be sitting in those chairs. I am going to be watching. I am going to be emailing you guys. I have your personal cell phone numbers. I have your cell phone numbers. I have pretty much. So I'm not going away. That's something that I have said that to a lot of people. I am going to find a way to give back to the community again in different areas. This helped me to create a different path, a different perspective, and have things. How can I help to the next step of our community itself? And my wife needs to go to a meeting, so I'm going to cut it short. Thank you so much. I appreciate for everything and all the support you guys have given me for the years. Put up with me sometimes. So thank you very much, and thank you, Austin, and thank you to all the residents of the village of Austin that supported me. So thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I'd like to ask for a 5-minute recess while we take some photographs and kiss family goodbye. And then we will get back to our agenda, picking up with the mayor's and trustees' announcements and go through the agenda as expected. Thank you very much. Back to work. Enough cupcakes. Madam
No,
Clerk.
brownies. Mayors and trustees announcements.
Yes, we do have one very big agenda item that I'll discuss later when the resolution comes up, which is our 2018 budget. But I have a couple of other lighter topics that I wanted to touch on. One of them is, I started this year every week taking a walk somewhere in the village of Ossining. My goal is to walk every block in the village. A number of you have joined me on these walks. If you don't know when and where I'm going to be, then that means you're probably not getting my email every Monday. And if you would like to, then shoot me an email at mayor@thevillageofossining.org or garrity@thevillageofossining.org. Tell me you would like to receive that email, and you will get it. And you will see that it says, weekly walks. This week, meet me at the corner of such and such and such and such at this time. It's usually on a Friday or Thursday. And I will continue to do this every week until I have walked every block. I have learned a lot on these walks about different neighborhoods, some that I've only ever driven through, and it's very different when you're walking, and a handful that I've never even driven through. Like if you don't know somebody who lives in the 10 houses at the end of any sort of cul-de-sac or dead-end street, you may not get down there, and it's really been, there have been a couple of those, and it's been really a wonderful experience to experience Ossining in this way. And not only have I gotten to know the blocks differently by walking them, but I've gotten to meet people who just show up, and if they're available at that time and that day, they use it as an opportunity to bend my ear about something that may have nothing to do with our weekly walk, but they know where to find me, and that's a very that's a great benefit to the initiative as well. So once I wrap up my weekly walks and I've covered every block, I'll report back to you with a little bit more of what I've learned from it. And I will also announce, it'll happen sometime early in 2018, I believe. I'll be able to complete the goal. And then I'll kick off my next initiative for how I can get to experience Ossining a little differently, and you can join me in that experience. All right. Aside from being a mayor and a mother and a wife, I also am a very proud co-founding member and continue to be an active member of the Ossining Documentary and Discussion Series. Every month, we invite the community to come together to discuss issues that matter. We meet in the Boudars Theater in the Ossining Public Library on a Thursday. It's this week, Thursday the 7th. Join us at 6:30 in the Ossining Public Library, and the film is called Dramatic Escape. You may have actually seen it on PBS recently, and you may be familiar with the organization that is highlighted in this film. It's Rehabilitation Through the Arts, and it's happening right here at Sing Sing Prison. And following the film, we will have a discussion with a fantastic panel of folks. You can learn more about them at ossiningdocumentaries.org. Others with announcements? Deputy Mayor Codman?
Sure. This is Saturday. This week is the second Saturday, and Second Saturday Jazz at the Elks Lodge will be have a great performance this week by Jerry Malkin Jazz Collective, and also as part of that, Ossining's Ingrid Jensen will also be playing. So very excited about that. It's Saturday at 7:30, We'll also have a buffet at the lodge. That's a separate thing for $10. That starts at 6. But we're going to keep the live jazz going on here in Ossining. So that's second Saturday jazz, this Saturday, December 9th, 7:30, Jerry Malkin, with a special guest, Ingrid Jensen. Thanks.
Anyone else? Yes, Trustee Levin.
So next week starts one of the holidays that comes up in December. Hanukkah starts, 8-day festival full of lights and lots of fried food, my favorite. And there will be the first night, everyone's invited to Market Square for the lighting of the first candle. There's material, I guess, that's been sent out. And it starts, I'm thinking 6 p.m.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And come enjoy. It'll be lit, I think. It's not the first time we're doing the menorah. We actually have done it in the past, so it should be a lot of fun. All family members invited. Come join. The second thing I wanted to talk about is, if it's okay, I don't know if you were going to bring it up, but Trustee Bazemore and the rest of the board were talking about a whole bunch of topics as we reviewed the budget, which is the big topic, I think. That's been on our minds for the month of November, December. And one of the things that we do usually at the holiday season is regarding the parking downtown, but really all the way through where our merchants are located. This year we're doing something different. Instead of covering the meters and going through all of that, we're trying something new called Ossining Bucks. The Chamber of Commerce and Village is partnering on giving out these $5 Ossining Bucks, coupons. And there are participating merchants. We're still in the phase of printing all this stuff up, so just hold on. But soon to come, and you will be able to get one of those coupons and use it with our local merchants who are participating. And people will be distributing them, so if you want a cup of coffee and a donut, you want to buy from any of our merchants at the restaurants and whatever other merchants are participating, please feel free to do so. You can call, I think, the Village, a manager's office, and can call, I'm sorry?
The chamber.
And, yes, and the Village Chamber of Commerce. I think there will be coupons available in the library, at the Chamber and to Church, and I don't know if the community center is giving, and the community center. So come enjoy and do a lot of shopping in all of our local, with all of our local merchants. And the chamber, I think, did I cover? Great.
Anyone else with an announcement?
Trustee
Clerk?
Levin? Trustee Levin, do you want to talk about the little coupons that are being given out?
Oh, bring a sample, it's in my car. So the other, I'm sorry. So thank you, Mary Ann. So the Downtown Development Council Fund is a citizens volunteer appointed committee, and third year in a row, yes, Mary Ann?
Yes.
Third year. I'm a liaison to the board, which is why Mary Ann so kindly reminded me to mention it. We are sending to all of our commuters a card that gives discounts with local merchants who are participating, and it's multi-use. You can keep using it over and over again. All sorts of vendors, I believe there's about 20 of them. They're also available, again, a community center from your office, Mary Ann, from?
Yes, we have them.
Okay. And at Village Hall, and they'll be available till they run out. We've printed lots of them, and I have them in my car, so obviously not giving them out tonight, but I will at the next event that I go to. And I hope everybody uses it. Again, this is all about shopping local and being part of a community. Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, then we'll move on to administrative reports, and we will begin with Village Manager Deborah McDonald.
Thank you, Mary Ann. It's really important this time of the year that our holiday lights look beautiful downtown. And I've been getting a couple of calls from folks letting me know that lights are out. And I wanted everyone to know that we put in an order with a company to get new lights. And so as soon as that order comes in, we will be fixing all the lights that are broken downtown and fixing all the wires and things like that. So please be patient. It's due any day. But we do want to get that back up and running. So it's a great season and a great time of the year. We are actively collecting leaves right now. So, get out there and shovel. And the leaves are falling late this year, so we understand that. So we are also, as the crews are getting ready for snow and snow shoveling. So we're trying to balance both of those, and we just ask for community support as we do the transition, and we'll get as much picked up for the leaves that we can before the snow falls, and hopefully that'll stay a little while before that comes. But that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
Move on to Corporation Counsel, Stuart Kahan.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. Last few weeks, I've been attending seminars both through New York Conference of Mayors and the Corporation Council Roundtable on telecommunications, small cell towers, and things of that sort, which are becoming the new telecommunications issues within the municipalities, particularly within Westchester County. Issues regarding rights-of-way agreements, and things like that, all of which I will be making a presentation to the board on those various issues, including issues relating to our own telecommunications and wireless ordinance that we have. I'm pleased to say that I have had, through the past 4 months, an intern from Brooklyn Law School who has provided me with legal research on various topics, including social media, which is another thing that I'll be presenting to the board coming up. Her term, because she's part-time, will end in about a week, and then she will resume again at the end of January. I'm also pleased that we will have someone else from PACE, as well as someone over the summer from PACE who is also a planner. So we will be able to use that person in conjunction with both the law department and the planning department. So we are able to use our local law schools to assist us with those matters. Thanks.
Thank you.
Move on to Police Chief Kevin Sylvester.
Good evening. The last time we met, we had a fairly lengthy discussion about massage parlors, which has been a hot topic, both in person and on all of our digital media. I'm proud to report to the board that since that meeting has taken place, we've made arrests in 2 establishments and closed those. One being on Croton Avenue, the other on South Highland Avenue, both for operating without a license, and one of them involving a prostitution charge. We'll continue to look at any other businesses that operate in our community and make sure that everybody's operating within the regulations and obviously in a lawful manner. But important for us to let the public know that we've heard their complaints, we understand what concerns them, and that we're taking immediate action on those things. Yesterday, a little bit of excitement on Main Street. For those that saw, we had closed Main Street for about an hour. We had a pedestrian who reported to us they found an unattended suitcase adjacent to the post office. That location, the time of year, and just the temperature of things outside right now made our officers significantly uncomfortable that we requested assistance from Westchester County and the Hazardous Devices Unit, which is colloquially known as the Bomb Squad, came for that one. Obviously, it's a concerning scene for anybody that was watching, but what we're reporting today, and we want everybody to know, is that it's done out of an abundance of caution. They're extremely professional, they're efficient, and they managed to clear that entire scene in about an hour. So it's a great asset for us to have, and a great partnership we have with Westchester County Police Department to have specialists like that to be able to come in. And we're glad they were able to assist us, have everybody safe, and reopen all our businesses in a timely manner. Lastly, I just want to thank Trustee Quezada for the experiences that I've had with him. When he came here, I think I was a sergeant at the time, so obviously my career has changed over that time. We've grown together. He's introduced me to a whole host of things, you know, related to Hispanic culture, from foods to dance and conversation and different things. So he's challenged me, and one of the things that's always impressed me is that, you know, for many people, when they come into these roles, you have questions about how the police department works. We tend to spend a lot of time together talking about things. Manny absolutely insisted he get in the car and go with us. So a lot of fun, not always for me, but for other people. And we, you know, he got exposure to a lot of the department and really dug in his role as the liaison of the police department. And for that, we're grateful, because we think that was a really good relationship we had, and not only benefited our relationship with the board, but helped the officers to understand what their relationship is to the elected officials here. So I think it's really helped our department as a whole, and we want to thank you for all of your assistance over the years and for all your partnership. Thank you.
I'm still doing ride-alongs, though.
Oh, boy.
We'll talk about
Okay.
that. I'm sorry, Mayor, if I can.
Uh-oh.
That's fine. I just have one more and unrelated to that. Over the past 18 months or so, we've developed a friendship within our police department, which maybe isn't even the appropriate term for this, but we have a special person in our department, Giovanni Toribio, who is a young man who's been suffering childhood cancer, which he had seemingly beat, and tomorrow is headed in for some tests and procedures to see what's going on. Not sure exactly what's going on, but here's the deal. Gio is a special person for our police department. He is the toughest person I've ever met. He is the embodiment of courage, strength, and positive energy. So, he better be sleeping because it's past his bedtime, and he's got to be up early tomorrow. But for when Mom shows him this tomorrow, we want him to know that the Austin Police Department's with him. We went by and visited the house today, and we're going to be posting to social media either later tonight or tomorrow morning and asking the community to leave positive messages both for Gio and for his mom and dad and for his brothers. This is it's not an easy thing to go through, and this is a great example of how our community is really comes together to help people in all sorts of situations. So, Gio, stay positive. We're going to be with you every step of the way. And for everybody else out there, please stop by our Facebook page tomorrow, check out some of the pictures of Gio and some of the cool stuff he's done with us, and leave him some messages to let him know that we've got his back. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, now, I'm not on the administrative reports, but Manny, as I told you before, I am going to miss you because we've become friends. I remember going out when you first decided you were going to run, and we went out and did things together. And I look at you and Fern and Lily as dear, sweet friends. And hopefully that will always continue. Lily is a sweetheart, so take good care of her and Fern. And I do want to see you out in the audience. But
I'll be here.
But try to be kind, okay?
Always.
Okay, brings us to organizational announcements. Is there anyone who would like to make an organizational announcement? And that'll be 2 minutes in length. Is there anyone?
To clarify, an organizational announcement would be if you have an organization and you want to let somebody know about an upcoming event or a fundraiser or something you want to invite folks to, that's what this is set aside for. There are a number of occasions when the public is invited to speak. The organizational announcements for 2 minutes. You saw earlier if you wanted to comment on the public hearings, that's actually an unlimited amount of time. The next step would be the village board resolutions, where you would have 4 minutes if you wanted to comment on any or all of the resolutions that are on the agenda for tonight. And then we wrap up with visitor recognition, where you are invited to speak for 3 minutes on any topic of general interest to the community.
Not seeing anyone, we'll move on. We have village board resolutions. Is there anyone who would like to comment on any of the resolutions? Right. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin hereby approves the minutes of the October 18th, 2017 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Can I just clarify, what is the date? Because it's approval of minutes from November 15th, and then in the body of it says minutes of
Oh, dear.
October 18th.
Should have been November 15th.
November 15th, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So as amended, November 15th meeting. I have to abstain, I was not present. So I watched the moment.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin hereby approves the minutes of the November 29th, 2017 special meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
On the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin hereby approves the voucher detail report dated December 6, 2017, in the amount of $3,651,499.84. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
This is a big one. Anyone wants to comment? I believe we bought a bunch of water from New York City. That was one of the big items. Is it that time of year that we're going to have particularly large voucher detail reports? I did see a couple of credits for things like returned air filters and hoses, but that was pretty negligible.
No, actually, good evening, Mayor, members of the Board of
Good evening,
Trustees.
Trustee Warren.
Actually, this is
Treasurer
the
Warren.
one time of the year that the village has to pay our employer share to the retirement system
Oh.
for employees and for police officers. So that was about $3.14 million. So That's the bulk of
Yep,
what
that
the
surely
charge
is.
is for.
That's why there's so many digits here. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolved, the village manager is authorized to sign an agreement with the Greater Austin Chamber of Commerce for the development and implementation of a holiday marketing plan upon review and approval of the Corporation Council. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
On the board, and this is the Ossining Bucks program that Trustee Levin was referencing earlier. And what we decided to do is, in lieu of having the 2-hour free meter parking for 2 hours, was to set aside about that same amount of money to encourage people to shop in our downtown. And it was a really great idea. I think it was sort of came out of an ongoing discussion of what would be a better idea. And then Trustee Levin, I believe it was your idea initially. We all thought that sounded super terrific, and we're very pleased to be partnering with the Chamber, because they're going to be they're going to be an organization that's helping us facilitate the businesses turning in their bucks and then working with the village to get reimbursed for all of the great stuff that shoppers like us are going to be getting $5 off on this holiday season, and it runs through the first week of January, right after the holidays, correct? Anybody else want to comment on this? No? We're good?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin has received from the Town Assessor for the year 2018 a combined total taxable assessment of real property and special franchise properties of $30,229,539, and whereas the Board of Trustees received the 2018 tentative budget on November 1st, 2017, in accordance with Section C43 of the Village Charter, and has since amended same after having held a public hearing and giving further consideration to requests and recommendations of all department heads. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin does hereby adopt the budget of the Village of Austin for the fiscal year 2018, showing that there be levied and assessed upon the sum of taxable and special franchise properties of the Village of Austin, as hereinbefore listed, the sum of $22,026,440 to be raised by real property tax levy, which sum is more completely set forth in the budget for the Village of Austin. And be it further resolved that the tax rate rounded to the nearest penny, and the same hereby is fixed at $10.8492 per $1,000 of assessed taxable valuation. And be it further resolved, the adopted budget for the calendar year 2018 shall include the appropriation of estimated revenues for the general fund, the water fund, sewer fund, Section 8, program fund, and debt service fund as modified by the Board of Trustees. And be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees has hereby authorized the capital plan for the calendar year 2018 as presented. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay. I imagine I'm not the only one who wants to make comments, but I do have some remarks on this I definitely want to share. What it doesn't explicitly say in here is that $10.8692 per thousand is the same tax rate as last year, and actually the same tax rate if you were to take into account that that was pre-assessment dollars. We have a 0% tax rate increase going into 2018. We had a 0% tax rate increase for 2017. So that's pretty remarkable, especially as we are continuing to invest in our community. This board has worked very hard to find a responsible way to be fiscally conservative while progressive in investing in our community. And we are very fortunate that this year, for the second year in a row, the village is experiencing some increase in the estimated revenue from sources other than property taxes. And that's one of the components that allows us to increase investment in infrastructure, as well as the contractual salary and benefit increases and the progressive initiatives that I'll talk a little bit more about tonight related to economic development and safe, affordable housing without raising your taxes to do so. We spent much of this year, 2017, soliciting input from the community. This feedback has been memorialized in the report from the Downtown Revitalization Working Committee, as well as the analysis by Kevin Dworka Associates, their consulting group, who undertook our housing needs assessment. The proposed 2018 budget includes pathways for moving forward many of the recommendations from these reports. Among those recommendations that are being funded by the 28 budget, we have an economic development consultant, which, 60,000? Is that a $60,000 amount? I meant to check. The economic development consultant, is that a $60,000 item, correct? Okay, I was doing that up from the top of my head. I didn't look that one up. And a parking implementation plan, which is looking at how can we make better use of our parking. That is many different kinds of parking. We have metered parking, we have overnight parking, we have commuter parking. There's lots of parking that needs to be considered because parking is a critical component in having effective economic development. And then one of the items that was also recommended by both of those reports is to update our comprehensive plan. And we're going to spend $150,000 for a year-long review and update of our comprehensive plan. In fact, all three of those initiatives were recommendations that appeared in both of those reports that I was referencing. Also, one of the tools that is recommended to us by the Landlord-Tenant Relations Council Subcommittee, which was Trustee Bazemore, Trustee Levin, and with Corporation Counsel providing legal advice, is an approach that we're going to be taking to a new way of inspecting, I don't know if that's the right term, but taking a look at our housing, our rental housing. Any unit that is two units or above, unless it's owner occupied, is going to be it's going to have a visit and is going to be evaluated for the condition of housing that they're providing. It's different than when our building department does it, and we're really interested in seeing how this pilot initiative goes, because getting access to housing so that we can ensure that we have a good quality of safe housing in the stock that's available for our community is very important. It's a high priority for this board. Along those same lines, in the building department is that we have funding for additional staff for the building department for code enforcement and for building inspection. And those are essential for us to be able to adequately address our goal of improving the situation when it comes to safe housing and ensuring that we are reducing our amount of overcrowded housing. That's been an initiative of this board since I came on as mayor, so even past boards in the last 3 years started off by just admitting that we have an overcrowded housing problem in Ossining, and then figuring out how to address it effectively. And we have done significant work from a legislative perspective. Thank you very much, Corporation Counsel Kahan, for helping us figure out how we can legislatively strengthen our ability to enforce our codes. We have money in the budget to be able to have the staff to do it. We have had some obstacles working with civil service in the county to be able to hire the staff to make it happen, but our fingers are crossed that the list is going to open up with new people to hire today. Woohoo! Okay, so we may actually see some forward progress with addressing our goals for safe housing, so that we can have the staff to really make that happen. Thank you. Thank you for the good news, Debbie. I do want to say thank you to the chief for bringing forward this next item I want to highlight. It's relatively small in the budget. From a dollars perspective, but it's very significant. It's profound for the impact of the safety of our community, and that is implicit bias training. Chief Sylvester participated in Washington, D.C. with a Chiefs Convention, and you got to meet a gentleman named Dr. Bryant Marks. We've all had an opportunity to watch some of his very, very compelling trainings that he has done, particularly with law enforcement, although he does implicit bias trainings with all kinds of organizations. And we are investing in a serious program. It's a 4-day visit from Dr. Marks, and each officer in the department is going to have a full day of training in a small group. And in the world that we live in today, and in our incredibly diverse community, this is an investment that I think is very well spent. Thank you very much for bringing that to us, Chief Sylvester. I'm excited to vote on that piece of the budget as well. This budget illustrates our commitment to prioritizing economic development. In order to attract businesses to Ossining, we must invest in our infrastructure. At its foundation, local government can be as rudimentary and essential as paving roads. we are increasing our investment in road paving by nearly 40% more than we spent in 2017. A good chunk of the paving budget comes from grant money through the CHIPS program. And we do see a number of projects that are paid for by Con Ed when they have road restoration to do, as we saw this summer on Croton Avenue. And just today, they began milling along Ryder Road and doing the restoration from the work that they had done in that area. Paving will be coming in the coming days. Lovely to have this warm weather well into the what normally is a cold season, so we can actually get some additional paving done. Very pleased to see that moving forward. Also, by this time next year, as you stroll down the Sing Sing Hill Greenway, you will be able to admire Ossing's iconic double arch bridge as never before. We will no longer be walking beneath black netting that currently protects pedestrians as they pass under the Broadway Bridge. That is the lower of the two arches, which is in need of structural repair. Beyond the engineering improvements that are required, the village will be taking the opportunity to recreate the historic facade, both above where you drive. There'll be a lovely new fence, replacing the chain link fence, and there'll be brick facing that will be replacing what is just concrete barriers now. And then below, the original bricks are going to be restored. We have the original keystone. It's going to be an absolutely lovely, lovely project. And the last time the bridge looked that good, there was no greenway underneath it. So it really is going to be a new experience for all of us in Ossining. It will, because it's a major project, mean some interruption of traffic. To minimize the impact, the construction schedule is focused over the summer months. There'll be much more information about that coming up next year. One long-awaited, game-changing initiative that is not an expense in 2018 other than the amount of time that will be spent by our staff to move it forward, and that is getting underway, proactively engaging with the DOT to transform the New York State roads that divide our community. This is an effort that will take years to fulfill, and the time to re-engage is now. Debbie's excited. I think we all agree that the epicenter of our traffic flow headaches is the Route 9, Route 133 intersection. Village Manager Debbie McDonald has begun meeting internally to prepare a strategy of what we will be asking for when we meet with the DOT. Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff is on board to help facilitate our coordination with that state agency. Please stay tuned for more information on this high priority project in the coming months. Turning our attention to affordable housing. Earlier this week, Trustee Bazemore and I met to discuss the recommendations from Kevin Dworka's report from the Housing Needs Assessment. Many of the recommendations are either already underway or will be furthered by several of the items in the 2018 budget. Today I asked Corporation Counsel Kahan to do a little research for us on affordable housing set-asides in some of the other municipalities in the county, so that in January we will be discussing a more proactive approach to our policy of affordable housing set-asides. When our policy was established, I believe 2006, we were right on the edge of progressive affordable housing policy, but other communities are well past us, and we think that there's an opportunity to do an even better job in providing housing for our very socioeconomically diverse community. It's important for us to have our revised affordable housing policy in place or well underway early in the year prior to updating our comprehensive plan, which, as we said, is going to be one of our big initiatives this year. And if we move forward with the proposed levels, we would be, I believe, the most progressive municipality in the county. Obviously, Westchester is one of the most expensive areas in the country to live. Ossining does remain more affordable than many of our neighbors, and we want to do what we can to preserve the ability for residents of all income levels to make the village their home. Investing in our community while maintaining a 0% tax rate increase for the second year in a row is a step in that direction. Further comments? Please.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to say, I'm certainly in agreement with all of the initiatives that you talked about. They're all things that have been kind of in the works throughout the year as we begin to look forward into 2018. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of how we got to where we are financially. There are a number of reasons that our fund balance is the way that it is. A lot of it has to do with unexpected revenues and unexpended funds. As the mayor pointed out earlier, there's money in the budget to hire folks in the building department and in other areas. And frankly, as any good budget should, you know, those monies have been there for some time. You know, our challenge has been being able to find qualified candidates to fill those positions and to meet county's obligations and other obligations related to hiring within the municipality. I'd also say that some of the other reasons that we're doing well on the fund balance has to do with cost takeout. You know, we did the LED streetlight program a couple of years ago, and that continues to save us money year in, year out. The difference between a regular light and LED light is about, you're saving about 66% of that cost. And we continue to get that benefit every year. And in addition to that, you know, because of the works of Andy Tees, we've really had a chance to look at all of our buildings, looking at the envelopes, looking at the heating and cooling delivery systems, and looking at the way that that we manage our energy costs. And I think that we're living in a little bit of a bubble on the energy side here, and I think that the more we're able to do cost takeout on the energy side, and hopefully in the future gain control of some of our own energy use and even produce our own energy through solar, that we would continue to see a benefit for decades to come. I think we've also done a lot of things around evaluation of services and look to consolidate things. The new budget has some things in it just around good operational procedures and best practices. I think that the expectation is that by the time the budget closes for 2017, we'll also realize additional monies. And I'm hoping that we will have the benefit of that and be able to set aside that money for debt service as well as for additional capital projects that we want to get done here. I have to say the goings-on of the recent tax discussion in Washington is quite disturbing. And we are fortunate now to be in a very good economic position. But I have to say, based on the review that I've read and the things that I've learned, that municipalities like ours and across New York, we could be seeing some very difficult times coming forward. And I'm very troubled by that. I confess all we can do is plan and be conservative and do the best that we can to do the right thing by the people and give them the best services we can with the money that we have, and try not to create an additional burden for them. The idea of a 0% increase was something that I shared with the mayor, and she and I, independently of each other, felt very strongly that to have the kind of fund balance that we had and not put money back into the village, get out ahead of a lot of capital expenditures, and to think about set-aside wouldn't be fair to taxpayers. So that's why we have a 0% increase. And I'm certainly very proud to be able to vote for this budget tonight. Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
So 6 years and still learning through a budget process. First of all, I want to thank Tom Warner, our treasurer. He guided me through the whole process. He pretty much made me understand how this works. Again, I'm still learning because there's something that there's always things that every year in the past 6 years, John and I started almost a couple months apart. We're always trying to figure out a way how to save money to the taxpayers without cutting our services to everybody here in the village. And Tom is the person, Tom and Dale have been the key persons for us to accomplish that, I believe, along with everybody else that works for the village of Austin, managers, supervisors, employees. I want to thank whole staff of our village to do an awesome job, as always, for us to be standing here or sitting down here and saying that we have a zero increase on anything. Again, this is not just because of us, it's because of the work our police department, our fire department, our DPW, our building department, our treasurer office, they do, a village manager's office, our corporation counsel office does. You know, it's a group effort. For me and for us to take credit, I don't think it's fair. I think is the whole community works together. And I wanted, besides the budget, I think it's great, and I don't want to keep saying or repeating stuff that already my colleagues have said, but something that I do want to say, next year is going to be an exciting year, different ways. The mayor mentioned something in regards to the comprehensive plan. Look at what in 2009 happened, what we've been taking that as a template to guide the future of our village. What that means is something that I had mentioned in the past is like if we need to go back to the map. A previous person here early in the meeting mentioned that, you know, he went to the zoning lot areas, the zoning book, where it tells you pretty much the description of each section on our village, and it tells you what is allowable there, what is a single-family house, a two-family, commercial, retail spaces. So that's essential for us to go back. There's a lot of things that we need to fix, and sometimes it's not just us making a decision, it's information that we need a feedback from the community as well. So please stay involved in that. Please pay attention to what happens next year. It's not just us making a decision. It's not just a board making a decision. We need the feedback of the public. Things of that nature happen for a reason, and it shapes the future of our community as well. John Codman, before he became a trustee, he was part of the comprehensive plan. You know, it was a lot of work, a lot of community meetings that took place at that time. So I'm not sure what the extent is going to be, because we have the foundation. We just need to embellish what that is and make Ossining the best place to be. Thank you for everything that you guys have done. I appreciate all the work. I've been watching you guys very closely, those chairs. So thank you for all the work that you have done, and thank you for allowing me this time to express myself off topic.
Totally on topic. Trustee Levin. Trustee Bazemore. No? Trustee Levin, it's on you.
Look, I think that one of the things you do as a trustee is look at budgets. We don't actually run the day-to-day operations. The village manager and her staff does. It's oftentimes confusing to the public. A lot of our folks come from the city where mayors run everything. It's actually not the way our system works. An interesting village in that sense. But the process of the budgets, it's extremely interesting for trustees who are elected to represent the public, because it's when you have a diverse trustees like we do, from different decades and different backgrounds and, you know, different points of view. It's really interesting to go through the budget process, and especially with the new village manager who has, you know, sort of a clean slate to work with and opinions of her own that she brings from her past experiences, to really talk about where you want to put the money and where you want to best represent the community about what things need to be done, not just in this moment, but things that not only affect the next few months, but affects years to come. So I thought it was great, the portfolio that we came up and we discussed many things. Many hours are spent on this. Sitting here is actually the least of it. So I thought it was really cool that we have a portfolio that deals with training, the police department. I think we're going to be one of the best, like in the country, frankly, by the time we're done, as far as a program that talks about how to get the best-in-class sort of training in the 21st century. Paving the roads, my favorite topic. I happen to think that, you know, when you live in the suburbs, your roads are actually something that everyone uses. And it's actually part of the job here. We spend a lot of our time, that's the service to our taxpayers, is to make sure water flows and it's clean and the roads are paved. So we actually were able to increase lowering debt, which John Codman was talking about. Totally apropos, having been listening to news on the federal level. I didn't know when I took a job as a trustee that politics at the federal government actually affect local economies, but in our case, being in a suburban community with virtually no tax base in the from corporations, all really small businesses, and the majority of the taxpayers being really middle class and somewhat lower middle class for Westchester, who bear a lot of the burden of the taxes. Tax changes, regardless of your political stand, is going to directly affect budgets that we passed today and budgets that we're going to pass in the future. So I think, and then there's the studies and the economic development. The economic development has been discussed by a couple of, I would say, public committees. I don't know really, they're volunteer committees. They're citizen committees that have come forth, have been created for different reasons in the past year. And for a couple committees, the idea of an economic development person, we have it as consultants, as this. At the end of the day, it's somebody that's going to implement some of the programs. I mean, in simple English, regardless of line items, I think in English it says both the parking and the economic development is there to help at the ground level. So to me, we've really been able to accomplish what I like to do, which is a portfolio that really attacks different levels of what we're here to do on behalf of the citizens. Not one item, but a number of them, and infrastructure being one of them, and all the other things I'm in. So I'm actually thrilled. It's not just the coffee talking, because I think I forgot to drink the decaf, but drank the caffeinated one. But it's actually, I'm really excited, more than I was last year, and I'm thrilled with it. So I hope other people are as well.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Thank you very much, Debbie, for jumping in with 2 feet. You started with us on September 1st, and this has been your focus for most of your time while you've been here. Meanwhile, you're getting to know Ossining and all of the staff and the community organizations, and it's a really good feeling to have all 5 of us really excited to be able to vote for this budget. And while Debbie is super new here, Tom, you preceded all of us on the board, and you are a wonderful, wonderful asset and resource and tutor for all of us. And I continue to learn more and more about budgets each year, in large part thanks to your patience and your understanding of municipal budget. And Dale, your right hand is really a phenomenal asset to us as well. So thank you very much for that. Madam Clerk.
We will have a roll call vote.
Oh.
Trustee Bazemore?
Aye.
Trustee Codman?
Aye.
Trustee Kazada?
Aye.
Trustee Levin?
Aye.
And Mayor Garrity.
Aye.
Resolved that pursuant to Section 126-1 of the Code of the Village of Ossining, the Board of Trustees hereby adopts fee schedule for the year 2018 as annexed hereto and made a part hereof.
So moved.
Second?
On the board, do you want to comment on this, Trustee Bazemore? There's a big change here, one big change.
Yep.
There is one big change that I'll briefly comment. This year we decided to look at our affordable housing fee. For many years it's been stagnant, I believe since almost 2008. And last week we had a lengthy conversation about looking at the fee as a way of when a developer opts out, that we could actually be building housing at a greater affordability. Kevin Dorker, in his study, he recommended that 20% of development be set aside at 60% AMI. And while that does meet a great need in the community, we do have a diverse community, which means that we do need housing for greater affordability that a developer may not be able to build. So last week, good majority of the board decided to increase the fee, and that is a change that happened this year, and I'm glad to see it happen.
Thank you very much. It's an integral part of being able to move forward those initiatives that were recommended in the housing needs assessment, and the other part of it, which you referenced, is changing the affordability set-asides, going from 10% of the new units built at 80% of the area median income to 20% of the units built at 60% of the area median income. And that greater set-aside amount is likely to encourage future developers to say, you know what, that's more than I want to build. I want to build only some of it. I want to build none of it, so I'm going to buy out, and we wanted to be able to, if they choose to buy out, to be able to buy out at a level that is going to actually mean something to the village, and that we can partner with an entity to be able to invest in affordable housing in some other manner that really meets the needs of our community very well. So I'm pleased to be able to move forward this initiative, as well as moving forward and next steps to be able to more have a more robust approach to our affordable housing program. Aside from that, there are a few minor changes to the fee schedule, which we discussed at length in our budget meetings, and will be on hand for people who want to check the fee schedule. It'll be online, or it'll
Yes,
be at the clerk's office.
They'll be online. We also have copies in the office, and tomorrow each department head will also receive a copy of the fee schedule, so they'll have it at their disposal.
Thank you. This is also a good time to update the fee schedule for the affordable housing set aside, because there's not a particular development that's likely to be, that we know of, that's going to be impacted, so nobody can feel that they're being targeted. It really is just a policy action.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Whereas the village treasurer has presented to the Board of Trustees a statement setting forth the amounts of all delinquent unpaid water and sewer charges in arrears located in the village limits, including penalties with the identification of the real property affected, and whereas pursuant to Section 11-1118 of the village law, such water charges are a lien upon the premises affected thereby. Whereas pursuant to Section 452 of the General Municipal Law, such sewer charges are a lien upon the premises affected thereby. Now therefore be it resolved, pursuant to Section 11-1118 of the Village Law and Section 452 of the General Municipal Law, the unpaid water and sewer charges plus penalties as set forth in the submitted statement from the village treasurer be, and the same hereby are, levied upon the property in default, and added to the annual tax levy with respect to such property, and be it further resolved, the amounts levied hereby shall be collected and enforced in the same manner and at the same time as may be provided by law for the collection and enforcement of village taxes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
On the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That completes your resolutions for this evening. Does the board have any continuing business?
We do not.
Okay. Do we have any new business?
We do not.
That brings us to visitor recognition. Visitors shall be accorded 1 3-minute opportunity to address the board on issues not relating to the agenda but of relevance to the common good of the village. Please state your name and your residential address.
Good evening, Mayor and Board, Executive Staff, Chief. My name is Joseph Turco, and I'm an attorney in private practice in Brooklyn, although I am originally a Briarcliff guy. And I attended Brookside in 1969. But I'm here on behalf of the Cat Squad. It is a cat rescue organization that I helped to incorporate in 2011. And I've been asked to come up today and address the issue of the village of Ossining and the feral cats within the confines of the village. Certain questions have been raised. Oh, before I raise those questions, let me say, I had a conference with the principal of the Cat Squad, and I want to make it clear, I'm not here to impugn anyone's motives. I'm not here to cast aspersions. I'm here simply to raise some questions about how feral cats are being treated in the village. The questions that have come up to me, and I can't answer them all. Is Ossining following a sound trap, neuter, release policy for feral cats? It has one on paper. Is it following a sound policy? Is it appropriate to remove a shelter that the village previously allowed to exist? What happened to the 11 cats that were put out of their shelters? Were the complaints brought to the police department, if we were to FOIA those, were they complaints that rise to the level of nuisance? nuisance which is expressly set forth in the state law. Was removing the 11 cats humane, or even does it rise to the level of cruelty? With the onset of winter, these are important questions. If the village once allowed the shelters and then disallows them, the village sort of owns that issue. The village created a duty of care. I'm not going to go on about the benefits of TNR trap neuter release. I'm going to leave that for others. I was asked whether or not Ms. Rodriguez had her rights violated. I cannot answer that. I do know that caretakers deserve extra protection because they serve the community. Regarding whether or not, by the way, if we can't resolve it, there are options that the, by the way, I want to acknowledge the sister organizations to Cat Squad that are here. The Cat Protection Council, the alley, may I have one more minute?
I'm sorry.
Very
In order to preserve everybody's opportunity to be able to speak, we do ask people to hold to the 3 minutes, so please complete your sentence.
I'll save
but
the
no
portion
more.
on the potential Article 78 for next time, if it comes to that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anyone else who's come to address the board?
Good evening. My name is Deborah Pangle. I'm the founder of the Cat Squad Rescue Group.
Evening.
May I have your
I've been
residential
asked-
address, please?
My,
Your residential
oh
address?
yes, 106 Dalmany Road, Briarcliff Manor, New York, 10510. Dr. Patricia Mayer, who is a resident of Ossining and owns 2 homes here, very much wanted to be here to sort of lend her voice to her experience in all this because of her concern. She is unable to attend, so she wrote me a letter that she wanted me to read to the trustees tonight on her behalf. During the cold winter of 2013, in the parking lots behind the open door in Ossining, there were many homeless cats living in the sewers, under cars, and without food or shelter. I would see them hovering under cars to get warm as I left for work at night. The sanitation workers reported finding several frozen dead cats that winter. I placed a large dog igloo shelter used on the corner of the upper parking lot to provide some shelter and food for the cats. I asked a friend, Annie Rodriguez, for suggestions for caring for them. I learned from her that hay was better than blankets to keep them warm as it won't freeze, and cans should not be used to feed them as they can injure their mouths. Thus began my education of feral cats. Annie and I asked for permission from the town manager that spring to set up shelters behind the lower parking lot in a secluded wooded area belonging to the village. The village management gave permission to Annie and myself at that time. I spoke to a woman from the village office to confirm their agreement, which is a verbal permission and not written. I bought 6 of the shelters for about $300 to place in the secluded area. Annie worked very hard that summer with some help from me to capture the feral cats, which numbered about 16 behind the open door for TNR, trap and neutered, and vaccinated against rabies, the ear clipped to identify as neutered before return. Thanks to her tireless efforts, the cats have been well taken care of. She feeds them, keeps the area clean, and brings them to the vet if noted to be sick. Occasionally, a new cat would appear, and she would do the TNR. She and others who compassionately care for these cats do so with their own time and money. It is a public service to the community as they are vaccinated and neutered, preventing rabies and exponential breeding. If Annie was not caring for these cats behind the open door and other sites, instead of the present 8 cats, there would be 40 or more.
Thank you.
It is my opinion that the Village of Ossining should applaud, appreciate, and support the efforts of Annie and others who care for the feral cats.
Thank you, Mrs. Spangle.
Sincerely, Patricia Myers.
Thank you.
May I have a copy of that?
I have one for you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who's come to address the board?
Please. Welcome.
My name is Janae Roberts, and I live in Tarrytown at 416 Benedict Avenue, Alston House condominiums. So anyway, I'm not an impromptu speaker, so I will be reading what I wrote. This is food for thought, and I think it's important. I remember reading Carl Jung's Synchronicity and Human Destiny years ago, and one paragraph stood out so deeply to me. My understanding of it was that our integrity can only be based on our individual psyches. It is my opinion, only mine, that ego is a very fragile quality that can be used for good or abused. And if we are the highest intellect in the animal kingdom, then that gift must be used wisely and compassionately. When our egos become inflated and our stature takes control of our psyches, we have failed as the supreme species. We have a situation here with cats, and everywhere with cats, who need our help, for they did not ask to live in a situation of despair. They need love. I recently met Annie Rodriguez, and I know Deborah, and they are heroes to me, giving selflessly their love to build to the best of their ability out of their own pockets, look, I'm shaking, and limited donations, a safe, controlled, and trusting relationship with these fellow animals. To be ridiculed or threatened for this is criminal in my eyes. There are psyches that function out of purity and compassion, and then there are those that are limited, unevolved, or short-wired or circuited. I have seen children throw stones at squirrels or treat indoor pets poorly, and we know where that can lead in their adult lives. When we take huts, the shelter, away from these cats, instead of working directly with trained professionals toward a rewarding solution, is that not adult cruelty? Inhumane and criminal. I implore you to put aside bureaucracy and dig deep to truly see for the sake of these animals and for those who care for them. I believe that all people with kind hearts will carry their, will carry their unconditional love with them in the end. What will be your legacy? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. Is there anyone else who would like to speak tonight?
Hi, my name is Leslie Smith. I'm a tax-paying citizen of Ossining. I live at 12 Barnes Road in Ossining. And I just wanted, this is my second time here. I trap feral cats and take them to the SPCA to get spayed and neutered. I know that is part of your budget. I just want to let you know that we as trappers and people who care for the cats, we provide you a free service of trapping the cats, transporting the cats to and from the shelter. If in fact a cat can be socialized, we take the time, which is free. We feed them from our own out of our own pocket, and we feed the cats that are in the town, in the village, out of our own pocket. We don't ask you for any kind of additional money for that. I also want to say that these cats, most of them, were not, they're not here on their own. It was a people-made problem. Either people could not take them when they moved, or they didn't have the money to take them and get spayed or neutered, or they just didn't want them anymore. And if they went to the SPCA would not take them for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's just they have limited space and they cannot take them. So if a person is moving and they can't take their cat, what do? They dump it on the street, or they try to provide it and bring it to an area where somebody might be feeding a cat. That is the humane thing to do. And I do think this is a black eye on the village of Ossining, the way you have come out about this problem. And it is a problem because there are a lot of cats. We need to continue trapping. We have a long way to go, but we can do it. If you just give us the time and you give us the leap of faith and talk to us, for those of us who are trying to do the humane thing by these animals. And in your printout, it says, when you say visitor recognition, it says by the relevance to the common good of the village. Well, we are trying to provide the common good for the village. And I also just want to read you a quote by Mahatma Gandhi, and I do hope you all know who Mahatma Gandhi is. And if you don't, you should look him up. He is a very important figure in world leaders. It says, and his quote is, "The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated." And I have to say, I think the village of Ossining can do a hell of a lot better, because you're not doing a very good job as I see it. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that's come to address the board?
Annie Rodriguez, and I just want to make one statement. I am trying so hard to understand why it is so difficult to put back shelters temporarily while we can be using this time trying to work towards a resolution that is beneficial to the community and to the cats. I mean, I just cannot, we're all intelligent people. I thought we were all compassionate people. With the shelters were taken without any notification to anybody, except on the day that they were taken. Why is it so difficult to put them back temporarily? I'm just asking. I mean, can you give me an answer, anybody? We're not asking, we're asking till we come towards a resolution. Why do these animals have to suffer because of this bureaucracy? I don't understand it. I understand all the complications of the government, of the village, of the codes. We are willing to work with you guys. We are so much willing. But why do the animals have to suffer? Temporarily is all we ask. I thought, I'm here 25 years. I came to Ossining because my brother now no longer lives here, but he told me what a wonderful, diverse community this was, what a caring community this was. And you know what? I believed it up until this happened. I am just so, I don't know what else to say. I'm trying to understand. I hear you all talk about various issues. You seem to be caring people. Why is it so difficult? Can somebody just answer me? And I'll try to understand. I don't know, temporarily. Why do the animals have to suffer in the winter, in the coldest time of the year, till we come to some sort of resolution? We're not asking for you to put them back permanently. We're asking till we come to some sort of resolution. They were taken away like that without me even being told until that day it happened. I don't understand. I don't understand why it's so difficult for people that are supposedly intelligent and caring to do that. These animals are suffering. They are used to shelter for 5 years. This is equivalent to putting a home cat that you have in your house outside. There are other ferals that we all TNR. They all don't have shelters. We had permission. I understand it's from administrations ago. I mean, I'm trying so hard to understand. I really am. And it's so difficult for me. Because I look at you guys and I sit here and I said, I can't believe it. They all look like caring, good people. But then when I see what's happening to these poor animals, I say, my God. It's just, that's all I want to say. I don't know what else to say. I hope we can come to some sort of resolution. I hope you will find it in your hearts to put them back temporarily, and then we can concentrate our efforts on working on a permanent solution that's beneficial to the community and to the cats. Instead of wasting our time to try and put them back, getting them back where they shouldn't have been taken away till other means were, found for the cats. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, no, everybody has 1 3-minute period. I'm sorry, Ms. Pengel. No, I'm sorry. If there's others who would like to comment.
That
you
went
did.
off, I read
No.
one letter.
Ms.
and it
Pengel.
went off short. I
Yeah.
was watching it. I did not get my full 3 minutes, and I want another second or two. I
Mi-
am.
Ms. Pengel, I'd like to hear from somebody else now. Everybody has their opportunity. Your time is up. Thank you.
I did not get the 3 minutes. I watched it, and.
Well, I'm sorry if there was any problem with the timer. Usually we do our best to be fair.
Therefore, somebody else can certainly get
Okay.
up, but I'm going to insist on the full 3 minutes, and I did not get it.
You,
Okay?
we're going to go by the way that the clock was working when you
No,
were up.
the clock is not working.
Well, ma'am, this is my meeting, and please sit down.
Really? Okay,
Would you like to speak?
I'll be back.
Spoke at last month's meeting. Again, I'm definitely not a great speaker, but I feel the need to get up. I have said pretty much the same thing last month. Can't believe I'm here again, and there's been no resolution. Victoria Garrity has reached out to me, and I really did appreciate that. I did write back twice and haven't heard back. Again, Ossining is a wonderful community. I am an Ossining mom, as Victoria Garrity is. I am so proud to be, or have been proud to be, a member of the community here. We, as moms, we teach our children and dads kindness and compassion. And I certainly expect our town officials, all of them, to behave with kindness and compassion. To people, to animals. I see that we welcome everyone to our wonderful, diverse community, and that is wonderful. We teach our children how important and beautiful that is. There was a mention by Marianne Roberts at the beginning of the meeting about kindness. Kindness, kindness, kindness. I said it last month, too. The way that people treat animals speaks volumes of their character. I want to be proud of our town and our officials. I don't want Ossining to be on the map as a place that is not treating their feral cats properly. Trap, neuter, return was embraced by our community as I understand it. I don't know when it began. I believe it was implemented at least 5 years ago when Annie Rodriguez and other caretakers began trap, neuter, return. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. With the permission, maybe it was a verbal agreement, but permission to do trap, neuter, return. You can't do trap, neuter, return and then suddenly take away the shelters because these cats were returned and they had the shelters. And suddenly, at the coldest time of the year, and it is going to snow, I believe Friday and Saturday, yesterday was frost covered in the morning, they don't have the roofs over their heads. It's not fair. I asked last month, can we please, please, please come to some sort of temporary stay of execution or whatever you want to call it. I know it's going to take time, whether it's to move the colony with the help of the Humane Society or Alley Cat Allies, whose mission is that from pet cats to all the cats that are outdoors in our communities all over the world, they all deserve protection and humane treatment. These cats are used to coming home at night and going in their little hut. They're not gigantic. They could even get smaller if we needed them to, with the hay inside, pushed back into bushes. They're not hurting anybody. I have begged and begged for reasonable action. My 12-year-old son said, you know what, Mom? You know what the solution is? Return the shelters while they work on this. My 12-year-old son, who has kindness and compassion, that I know all of you have. I know some of you personally. I really want this resolved, and I don't want to wait until another work session. November 29th was the meeting with the Humane Society rep that couldn't make it, which was really unfortunate. But we can't just table it while the cats are going to get snow on them. That's where I am.
Thank you. I would like to, I'm sorry, do you have a couple more seconds? Did you want to say anything else, Marcy?
No, I want to thank you for consideration, but I am begging to please be kind and compassionate.
Thank you. If there are more people who want to speak, you will have an opportunity. I do just want to, first, I need to make a correction. My job is, it's my responsibility to chair the meeting. This meeting is actually a meeting for the public, a meeting for everybody here in this room and anybody who comes to meet with us. It's a great privilege to be able to chair this meeting, and one of the things I like to hold to is the expected amount of time, so that everybody has an opportunity to speak. I also, TNR preceded me. It preceded, I think, all of us, and you are a senior member of the board. You're now in your 7th year. It was already in.
It wasn't anything that ever came in front of us in the almost 7 years I've been here, so.
Right. It's been the village policy for a number of years, and it is a line item in the budget. It's tens of thousands of dollars that we pay to the SPCA each year to trap, neuter, and return cats, and that's a program that we have been supportive of, and there's really been no question that we would still be supportive of that. I guess I have received, I don't count, I have totally lost count of how many emails I have received in the last month. And all of us have worked, try and understand more about feral cats, community cats, TNR, folks in our community, the cats in our community, the policies, the laws. I guess what I'm just really not clear about is, at this point, what's being asked for. Because stop, please, I have a couple of questions for Chief Sylvester. Chief Sylvester, Chief Sylvester, the week before Thanksgiving, your department was following up on some concerns that had been raised about cat shelters in the downtown. At that time, how many shelters were removed?
10. 10 plus the igloo, so, excuse me. I'm not familiar with all of the people here at that time. Annie and I have been discussing this for years now, I think is safe to say. 10 cat shelters plus an igloo, which she said wasn't there to shelter the cats, it was there for feeding the cats. So on the Brandreth Street lot, 10, which were not there for a long period of time. These were placed there after a succession of conversations of moving them up and down Central Avenue when other residents complained that they didn't want them on their property either.
Please don't call out. Okay, so there were 10 shelters. Please do not call out, or else I will ask you to leave. There were 10 of the cat shelters, and there was the igloo that is used for feeding.
That's right.
And those were removed from the Brandreth area lot and
On November 10th.
on November 10th. Okay. They were held here in the driveway at the police department.
That's right.
Until some volunteers came and retrieved them. You were
That's right.
holding them here. You would let Annie know and anybody else that they're here, and your property will hold them until you can come and get them. And somebody did come and get them. And
Yes.
then,
And then they were replaced back on public property without permission.
so all of the shelters that were removed on November 10th have been replaced.
As of right now, I've found 4 shelters on Brandreth Street, 2 behind the Monitor Host Firehouse on Central Avenue, and 6 of them at the bottom of Central Avenue, which appears to be on the property of One Independence Place. We didn't give permission for any of the ones placed on public property, and we have not been able to reach the owner of that private property, as I believe that that estate is in probate.
Right.
No, you
No,
can't.
no, Annie.
No, you've had your chance to speak.
I offered.
Please sit down.
No, things need to be corrected. I'll do it.
I'm
I'll do it
sorry, this
respectfully.
is not a public forum right now. This is not a back and forth.
All this
I've listened
information
to what
is
you have to say.
incorrect, and I have documentation to prove it.
How are you gonna learn anything unless you listen?
This is one-sided.
Is there anyone who has not spoken that would like to speak? Please.
My name's Laura Rickett. I live at 81 Charter Circle in Ossining. Mayor Garrity, I don't quite understand how now, just now at this meeting, you're trying to learn about the situation when you've received so many emails from people all over, even from out of the country.
Canada.
Really? And now you're asking about this? I don't get that. Can you please explain it?
Deputy Mayor Codman.
So, I've read all the emails that have come in. All of us have received the emails. And I understand everybody's feelings about this. And I chaired the meeting where we all met before, okay? This is very deeply disturbing for me, okay? I'm not happy with how this has progressed. But one of the things that has to happen is there has to be a public discussion of the facts and the situation that took place before they were removed. And that is what we're trying to do right now. You've all had your opportunity to come up and speak and talk about what's important. And what we're trying to do as legislators, as trustees, is we're trying to understand all the correct information that's happened and the series of events that have taken place. So that is what's going on right now, because we're trying to come to a place, at least from my perspective, is I don't want this night to end without coming to some kind of action here. Okay, so let me finish, okay?
You
So-
interrupted. I was still speaking.
You asked a
Well,
question.
You asked a question and I'm answering it, okay? And so I'm going to finish my answer and then you can pick up and you can have the rest of your time. But this is something that's important, and establishing what took place before and and what happened with the removal and the current situation, that's what we're trying to establish within the public event, in this public event. Thank you.
All right. Instead of waiting for one of these meetings where we're on a 3-minute timer, okay, why can't a meeting be held with the chief of police, the mayor, some of the trustees, and some of the caregivers, and sit down and resolve something, even if it's temporarily? And I was there when the shelters, because we were at a protest, there were 10 huts down at the police station. We took a number of them, and they're in storage. And a number of them were left at the police station. And then we saw on your posts that they were put on private property. And we were confused because I don't know where all these posts were coming from saying the cats are fine, the cats are safe, that the huts have been returned. So there's something really, there's different stories here. And what's being posted is not the truth. And I really believe there needs to be a meeting, and the sooner the better. These animals are suffering, and it's not fair. It really isn't. And I'm so disappointed in the people sitting up there. Thank you.
Corporation Counsel Kahan, you and I spoke earlier today.
Yes.
Regarding the village code that somewhat addresses this, and some municipalities have a much more in-depth code, and there might be some considerations for the board to undertake in a work session when we have an opportunity to speak about it from a legal perspective, as well as with representatives from the SPCA and the Humane Society.
Yes.
Can you shed any light on this conversation or where we are now?
As you correctly point out, there are jurisdictions in New York. South Fallsburg is one that comes immediately to mind, up in Sullivan County, that has a very specific regulation with regard to both feral cats, and specifically with regard to those who care for the feral cats. In South Fallsburg, those folks are registered with the municipality. In South Fallsburg there are specific areas where the feral cats may be, the shelters may be located. They may not be located on public property. They may not be located within, I think, 300 yards of a school, certain regulations like that. And that the person who is registered is responsible for a certain number of those shelters. That's the regulation they have there. Other municipalities have it different ways. For example, in the city of New Rochelle, feral cats are qualified as a wild animal, and the city of New Rochelle has a specific ordinance that wild animals may not be fed within the confines of the city of New Rochelle, and that extends to feral cats. Ossining, where we have been coming from, is under essentially our littering and littering ordinances with regard to the fact that if food is simply left in a location, and particularly be it on public property or even on private property, if the private property owner does not want it there, that is effectively littering, and that's what it is. And that is a violation of the village code. And that's where the issue was particularly coming down. But one of the things that would have to be looked at is what would this village want to do in terms of potentially having specific ordinances that relate to that, both in terms of the TNR policy, which is also codified in many other village ordinances, as well as to what to do with the specific caregivers who do that, and what are those responsibilities. In South Fallsburg, the caregiver has very specific responsibilities, and if they don't do that, they lose their right to, in fact, be the caregiver for those particular feral cats. I'm presuming that there must have been a significant population of feral cats in South Fallsburg for that to develop, but that's the law up there. And specifically, it's one of the few that has a specific location requirement and makes it very clear it cannot be on public property, cannot be in public parks, and as I said, within areas of schools and things like that. Within our village, and I've had discussions with the chief on this and with others, we've looked at it as really a littering situation, particularly with regard to simply food being left in an area. And that was really what the concern was. We're trying to clean up various areas with regard to those code provisions, but that is a provision that has, long been followed in the village, and it was a concern with regard to that. So that's something that certainly has to be looked at, and I would hope that when the folks from the Humane Society come in, we can, further that discussion. But that's what some of the municipalities have. I will say that it is not widespread in New York State in terms of municipalities having feral cat ordinances. Most don't, but there are, as I said, a few that do. As I mentioned, the New Rochelle and South Fallsburg, there's one or two others. Within Westchester County itself, other than New Rochelle, there's really not much else. But it appears that many of them do have ordinances in terms of basically leaving food, debris, or things like that in public areas or just on streets. That qualifies as littering, which is effectively what the village has, which is consistent throughout the state of New York. And that would also be considered a nuisance.
Anybody on the board or staff want to comment on this? Just hold on. I think there might be a board member who'd like to comment, and then we will open it.
I think that there have been lots of emails, and many are from outside of our municipality. We represent the people of Ossining, and I take a lot of it to heart. It's a lot of education about feral cats, but the reality is we also get lots of emails from shop owners about, I wouldn't exactly say littering, I would say, that like all animals, there is just, a lot of mom and pop stores that run businesses with a lot of defecation, public space, and we have lots of kids and elderly and people using our public spaces. And, there are a lot of issues with animals that are running. I get the idea of feral cats. I know that they are totally harmless as animals to the community, but it's all of the cans of food, rodents that it attracts, and a lot of other stuff that we also get emails on. And, those people aren't sitting here because they're not an organized group of people. They simply write us emails the way other people write us emails, or they stop us in the street. And that's usually what happens. We get all sides of the story. I mean, honestly, today I got an email from somebody, I haven't even had a chance to look at it, about great ordinances in the state of Utah. I guess they must have great stuff going on there. But I also got an email from a person who belongs to some organization regarding birds, and their organization really fighting feral cats because they do something to birds. I don't even know what the heck it is. I have to tell you, it's a really great learning experience. It's not something that I was aware of, so for me it's been a learning experience. But we as trustees, honestly, we do try to figure out a common ground, and that's actually where we are, and there has been a lot of work towards that. It is about the entire community and the effect it has on all of the members of the community. And, that's, I think, what is sort of a bit of the struggle right now. And we have become, unlike where we were 10 years ago, when I moved here 25 years ago, the downtown was not as densely populated as it is today. The parks were not as densely populated and being used. I'm excited about that, but it does bring with it some other issues that we didn't have probably a decade or so ago. And, this is stuff now that we are, I think, dealing with and learning about and trying to educate ourselves about what the proper solutions are. So, that's where I am on it.
Anybody else want to comment, or? I'll make another comment, and then, yes, I will invite others to comment. The people who spend so much of themselves, give so much of themselves to these cats, are seeking to end a cycle of cruelty that has been inflicted on these animals, probably since the moment they were born or the moment that they were abandoned. And that is a very generous gift that you give cats in our community and to Ossining. And for that I am so grateful. And your passion and your intention is very genuine, and that is very well received. This board is not of one mind as to how to proceed at this moment. The one thing we agree on is that we need to get focus the conversation about what is the best way to improve our policies, to improve practices for TNR, to have all options on the table for how the policy code may be improved in the new year. My mindset is, unless and until we make some deliberate changes, I would like, theoretically, to be able to preserve the status quo of how our code and policy has been interpreted in recent years. The concern that is raised with that approach is that there seems to not be clarity of what was a month ago or a year ago. If there were 10 shelters and 1 feeding station that were removed, and they have all been returned to whomever picked them up, and there are now shelters, largely on public property, some on private property, and it seems that the owner of that property is not complaining, that is already a step further than some folks are comfortable with. But for someone like me to say, you know what, let's just let that stand unless or until we have a better, well-thought-out plan. But the reaction that I get from people who want to do really kind, generous things for cats is, that's not enough. We need a shelter for every cat, and we have thousands of cats. I genuinely tell you, these are the emails that I'm receiving, so I really am hesitant to be able to push for any position, and this is why it is so difficult for us to give you an answer that you want. So, there is a woman who has not spoken yet. You would like to comment. I don't think that there's much more for me to say. I'm still not sure how we're going to proceed from a village government perspective, but if someone who has not spoken would like to use their 3 minutes, please do. After the meeting, I would gladly take some time to hear from any individuals.
Virginia Vasallo Leary. I was born and raised in Ossining. I now live in Garrison. And this meeting is just blowing my mind because you talk about dialogue, but yet you only allow people 3 minutes where you all have a lot. Now, as I look around here, this is the main issue tonight, correct? I mean, I don't see any other groups asking to speak to you. What we need is education on your behalf. These ladies have been to seminars. They have been educated and taking care of these animals. They are doing Ossining a very great beneficial thing to get them neutered and get their shots. So there's no, and also there's no packs of cats running around, which was a great word that was used at the last meeting. Annie's taking care of what, between 8 and 11 at this point? And by caring, she takes care of them, she brings them their food, she cleans up after them, she doesn't leave a mess, and the huts are so much more neater and visually nicer than what they've had to set up makeshift at this point. You know, I just don't understand about, this is supposed to be dialogue, and I don't think it is. You have to educate yourself, not with the SPCA, but with the people who are trained to do this. You know, I don't get a lot of stuff here. You know, you said kindness well received. Who's being kind? You're not being kind. It is cold outside. These cats need a shelter. Put the shelters back. Have your meetings with these people. Talk to them. Have a dialogue, a real dialogue, to discuss what has to be done to get codes. If you want to do your codes, your policies, blah, 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 words. But work with the people that know what they're doing. That's all.
I see at least one more person who hasn't spoken. Would you like to speak? You don't have to. I just want you to know that you are welcome to have your 3 minutes, Mr. Ann.
Jill Duran, 609 Kemmys Cove, Briarcliff Manor, New York. Just learning recently and had sent an email to the board and the mayor. Just, you know, as a cat owner and part of the village, I just have, you know, concerns. I would like to have this addressed, you know, immediately because it's winter time. Had it be in the spring, it would be a little bit easier. So I just ask, you know, the board to consider doing that as soon as possible, to meet with people who have the knowledge. I don't have that knowledge that they do. I'll learn a little bit more, but, you know, I would like you to just take the time to meet with them as soon as possible because it is very cold and I'm afraid, you know, for these animals, and I'd like to see, you know, our village do the right thing by them.
Thank you, Mr. Rand. No, Wayne, I'll talk to you after the meeting. There's one more woman in the back of the room you haven't spoken to. Would you like to speak on this or any other topic? Behind Mr. Rand? Well, you know.
No, you don't have to.
You don't have to at all. I just want to make sure anybody who wants to speak has their 3 minutes.
My name is Sue Gorman. I'm the president of Forgotten Felines. For the last 35 years, we have done TNR. We were the first group in Westchester to ever start it. And thank God we did, because you guys, if you think you have a cat problem now, if these people all back out, you will have thousands more cats in your neighborhoods. Right now, they're being fed, so they're not in the garbage cans. You stop feeding them, they're going to be all over the place, at the stores, in back of the supermarkets, looking for food. You would be too. You take their shelters away, they're going to start going into the engines of the cars to keep warm. You know, that's another problem. There's ways of addressing this. But I take a look at all of you, and you sit here when we try to explain to you, and you have your heads down. It's like you don't want to listen. I mean, this is happening all over the United States. California has a wonderful, wonderful program for feral cats. I mean, and New York is just lagging behind. It's ridiculous. I mean, everything went well for, what, 5 years? There was no problem. All of a sudden now, if you put down food for the cats, it's littering? Come on. I can understand if anybody leaves a plate somewhere, it should not be. There should not be paper plates blowing all over. And those are concerns that I understand, and it should not be that way, but we can work things out. If we take the time and use our heads, we can make things better for the community. You know, we should, you know, it's a new administration here, I guess. You should all be saying, you know, what can we do for the people in Ossining, and what can we do for the cats? You know, not sit there with your heads down and worry about all these laws. It's like crazy. I've never seen this in another community. I mean, it's ridiculous, really, to follow Annie Rodriguez when she feeds the cats. Really. You know, this just blows my mind. I don't understand it. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So you guys all need to get together and talk about this and see how we can work it out. Because the cats are going to be fed. And they're going to stay there. They're not going to leave if we don't feed them. And they're just going to keep reproducing. I don't really know too much about the whole thing, but has there been actual complaints about where Annie feeds?
If you're done, I will. 3 weeks ago at the, thank you very much, Ms. Gorman. 3 weeks ago, Chief of Police Sylvester did provide a recap of when the focus returned to the cats, and that began with some complaints that were received back in June, and there have been a number of conversations ongoing between the village and Ms. Rodriguez. Does anybody have any further comments? Because at this point,
No,
I think we've heard you. Thank you very much. I don't believe there's anything more on the agenda, so in a moment. I'm sorry, you've used your 3 minutes, but after the meeting, yeah, everybody gets 1 3-minute session to discuss anything of interest to them. Okay, to clarify, everyone gets 3 minutes. You cannot yield your time to other people. You can use your 3 minutes to discuss anything that you like.
This is not about cats, this is a dog tether law.
You could have come up and discussed parking if you wanted, but right now, your 3 minutes has been used.
Two topics?
Please stop interrupting.
This is a dog tether law.
Do we have any executive session this evening?
We do not, Madam Mayor.
In that case,
May I have a motion for an adjournment?
So moved.
all in
All those
favor?
in favor?
Aye. And with that, I say please join us next week for our work session at Village Hall. The following week, ma'am, the meeting is still on, we are still on camera, ma'am? Ma'am, could you please wait?
I was gonna say, I'll mail to you tomorrow.
On December 20th, we will be having our board meeting at an unusual location. For both of the next 2 weeks, our meeting begins at 7 p.m. At 7 p.m., we will be having a scoping session regarding a proposed,
The project involving, at Snowden Woods.
yes. So it begins at 7 o'clock at Village Hall. We will then continue on to our regular work session from there. And then the following week, December 20th, our meeting, we will begin at 7 o'clock at the Operations Center on 9A. We'll be doing a walkthrough of the building there, and then we'll be going into a special work session, our last formal meeting of the year, and we will be discussing all of our buildings and properties and looking ahead at what sort of improvements we may want to make to those properties. So please do tune in for those meetings. This meeting is adjourned.